Hey guys, it's Troy. Welcome to another episode. Stop trying to be her therapist, be her storm. Stop trying to be her therapist, be her storm. Okay, so there is a tendency, and look, we're all nice guys, right? We're all brought up to be nice, polite, caring, respectful people. And if we encounter a damsel in distress, okay, if we're dating a woman and that she's got stuff going on, she's got problems, etc., obviously our natural inclination is to step in and try to help, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a very noble and nice, although that's a loaded term, impulse to have. Okay, and it does have a place in relationships for sure, but at the same time, you're not her therapist, okay? Now, it might be, depending on the nature of the woman she is and her circumstances, it might be that you've met a girl who is kind of isolated. She doesn't have that many friends, maybe she doesn't have a good relationship with her family, etc. That's very unfortunate for her. It still doesn't make you responsible for her, particularly in the earlier stages of the coupling. I mean, if you guys were married, if you've been together for 20 years, okay, that changes the ball game somewhat. But let's assume that you're not. Let's assume this is someone you've met fairly recently, you're dating, and she's using you as a kind of a therapist. That is not a good way to go, okay? A better thing to do is to be, instead of her therapist, to be her storm, okay? To be the bringer of chaos, all right? Now, this rather goes against received wisdom, which would state that women want the guy to be the sort of the oak tree and the solid, strong rock. And yes, you do want to bring an element of that energy into it, for sure. I mean, if she comes to you and she's super upset about something, then yeah, you want to be that guy who's like, look, it's going to be okay, don't worry, I'm here, whatever. But equally, and this is nuanced, so listen carefully and cogitate on this. Equally, you don't want to be too predictable either, okay? You don't want to be the super predictable, boring ass dude, the Ned Flanders kind of guy, who's just there to help with any problem at any time without bringing any drama himself. Because unfortunately, and this is a truism about human nature that I think applies to both genders equally, but it certainly applies to women, is they tend to like drama, okay? They tend to like drama, all right? A girlfriend of mine would always accuse me of loving drama, and I would always say, well, I'm not sure if I do really, to be honest. I actually quite like a quiet life. I think it was her that really loved the drama. Either way, we both supplied plenty of it during the time that we were together, and for better or worse, that relationship lasted a very long time. Okay, why did it last a long time? Well, I mean, because of love, because of mutual respect, various things, all of those kinds of things, but probably also because there was a lot of drama there, and probably she was right to some extent. Probably I am somewhat addicted to drama. Certainly my own life has been marked by a degree of chaotic behaviour and chaotic happenings. I would suggest that she too was addicted to drama to some extent, and as I say, this is not uncommon when you think about modern women, all right? And look at the cultural context. Look at the cultural context that we're in, right? What are the main forms of entertainment? Well, TikTok, Instagram, where people are YouTube, where people are having beefs all the time, Instagram, where people are making contentious points on reels. We got Netflix series about serial killers. We've got all kinds of just sort of outrage and, the news cycle, the 24-hour news cycle with its constant conflict and everything else. And think about movies, right? What movies do people want to go and see? The whole basis of storytelling is conflict, right? It's drama. People are enlivened and addicted to drama, okay? So why should it be any different in their personal relationships? Well, because you could reasonably say a personal relationship is meant to bring you solace, and it's meant to bring you a place of comfort and peace and blah, blah, blah. And I would agree. I would absolutely agree. And wouldn't it be a lovely world if that was the case and it worked? And maybe for some people it does work, and maybe for some people that kind of very peaceful, sort of tranquil relationship plays out well. But in my experience, and not just my experience, but the experience of friends of mine who've been very proficient in dating, and dating, you know, very attractive women of different nationalities and, you know, across the world, and clients of ours, what we've observed is that actually what women seem to really respond to is a degree of drama. And that means that you have to be a purveyor of drama. James Tusk refers to this as being almost like an emotional drug dealer, okay? So you've got to be the person who's supplying the drama to some extent, the chaos, okay? And the problem is, if you fall too much into the caretaker role, then she might appreciate that, and short term that may pay dividends, absolutely, and also it's a nice thing to do. It's a decent, honourable thing to do. But are you setting the world on fire by being that guy, that safe, dependable, super reliable guy? Regrettably not, okay? So there needs to be balance. There needs to be balance to your unbalancedness. But I would say that actually, when I think back to recent relationships I've been in, the sort of the relationships ironically have worked better when I've been more uncontrolled. I don't want to give away too much detail here, but when I've been more chaotic, in a weird way, the relationships have worked better. Okay, because, and I can't fully explain why. I'm still trying to process in my own head why that would be the case. But I think it's something to do with the fact that when you as the guy are a bit chaotic, a bit all over the place, a bit up and down, a bit unpredictable, then the woman in that dynamic feels that she has to work harder in order to keep hold of you, okay? In order to keep you under control, in order to make sure that you don't stray, you don't just randomly leave her or whatever. I think that as you become, you know, more stable, more dependable, you know, maybe you've had some bad habits, say with drinking or with using drugs or something like this. Maybe you've had some bad habits that have messed up your behavior for a period of time, and then you put those down, and now you're keeping your side of the street clean, and you're being much more that kind of dependable, reliable guy that supposedly she wants. Ironically, you could end up getting punished for that, okay? Because suddenly that dynamic has shifted, right? Firstly, you're not bringing the drama in the same way as you once were. And secondly, and again, everybody's different, right? So some women are going to act like this, some aren't. But some women, I think, very much get off on the being the sort of the caretaker in those scenarios. And also, there's probably as well a healthy dose of the fear of loss, because, oh shit, I can't really predict what this guy's going to do next. So I've got to be super careful and super vigilant here, because he might fly off the handle and just go off with somebody else or leave or whatever. When those concerns are removed, then the relationship can ironically often go downhill, because the woman has less to worry about, okay? And so, you know, then she feels that maybe she can be a bit more critical, maybe she can test you more, maybe she can, I don't know, put additional strain into the relationship, maybe trying to create, to make up for the drama that she's lost from you, she's now trying to create her own drama, all right? So, in summary, being her therapist is not a good thing. Now, up to a point, yes, you want to be understanding. Yes, you do want to be you know, the strong type that she can ultimately depend on. However, you also don't want to be a boring buffoon, okay? You also don't want to be a boring, just super dependable, super reliable, but slightly dull sort of do-gooder who she knows she can always rely on, okay? Because that also gets dull very quickly, okay? And the worst sin that you can commit in modern dating is being boring, okay? So don't be boring. Bring a bit of chaos, bring a bit of drama in a measured way. Again, caveat, I'm not talking about treating people badly. I'm not talking about seeking out to sort of destabilize people or anything like that, but just recognize the dynamics that are at play here, okay? And try to play them in your favor. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you got something from it. Please do let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channels if you haven't already. And if you're interested in coaching, email me troy@realtroyfrancis.com. I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.